The House Financial Services Committee planning on marking up stablecoin legislation today. President Trump said that he wants a stablecoin bill on his desk soon. He's got a lot going on with the tariffs. I can't even imagine he wants to focus on stablecoins. Congressman French Hill from Arkansas, he chairs the Financial Services Committee. He's here at our table this morning. We often see you through the window from Washington.
So great to be with you.
So it's nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
I do want to ask you about tariffs, but let's talk stablecoins first. What does this legislation actually look like, and what's the chance it actually gets passed?
Well, we think an important component for future of finance is to have a dollar-backed stablecoin here in the United States under U.S. law, where we have the rule of law, the biggest economy in the world, the biggest capital market in the world. And we think it'll then set the standard for what is a stable coin, how would it be used in a new payment rail called a blockchain payment rail using a dollar-backed stable coin. The Senate marked up a bipartisan bill 2 weeks ago, and we'll mark up our bill this week. So I think there's a good chance that we'll find bicameral consensus and bipartisan consensus to move a stablecoin bill to the president's desk.
I'm curious, you talk to a lot of folks in crypto land, a lot of whom want this, but there's other folks who have sort of different ideas about how this all should be executed. Where do you see the fight?
Yeah, that's such a good point, because this is not a one-off bill. If you had a dollar-backed stablecoin under U.S. law, where are you going to use it? How are you going to use it? And so the regulatory framework bill that we passed last Congress with 71 Democratic votes called Fit 21, we're going to introduce a version of that bill to try to create the regulatory market structure. How do you protect consumers? How do you tell dealers and innovators and coders how to use digital assets in a financial services context? Is it a security? Is it a commodity? Is it neither? And we're going to.
And what do you think the answers are to those questions?
I think those answers can be found. We offered answers to those questions in Fit 21 last year that got bipartisan support, and we're going to reintroduce that bill and debate it in the House.
If you're successful, what do you think happens to all of the big credit card companies, for example, all of the big payment tech companies, for example? I mean, there is an effort, as you know, by all of these startups to try to upend the entire world with which your committee effectively oversees.
Yeah. Well, we oversee fintech as well. We oversee the payment rail as well. And payment rails have gone from cash to check to promissory note to credit card to debit card to real-time payment. And now they may well migrate at retail and wholesale on a payment rail with a stable coin. But what
you're very interested in investing in the like. And the reason I ask the question is there are people who say to themselves, should I be long Visa or should I be short Visa? Because if there's some people who argue if stablecoin works, a Visa should their margin should come down.
And what do the lobbyists come to you and kind of pressure?
Well, my view is when you have a big brand name like Visa or MasterCard, that gives you a marketing advantage to introduce a payment stablecoin rail in your world. And the same would be true for PayPal, is to just name some large non-bank major payment players, although obviously the credit card companies are affiliated with banks. I think you'll see bank and non-bank competition here. We see the adoption rate, even at retail outside the United States, with they're dollar-backed, but they're not U.S. regulated companies. So I think this will create more competition in that payment rail space, and don't we all thrive on more competition?
What do you hear from the banks, the credit card companies, and beyond? What are they coming out?
They want level treatment, definitely. A non-bank issuer should be under the same capital regulatory scrutiny as a non-bank issuer. There's concern by the banks of non-bank issuers being granted bank-like status at the Federal Reserve. All those things are tackled in this legislation.
Okay, while you're here, you got to weigh in on the big topic here, which is tariffs. What do you think is actually going to happen? You lived in the business world, so you appreciate, I think, all of these points. Does this all get resolved tomorrow, or does this get resolved over multiple years because we're going to start to see retaliatory efforts and then a sort of grander negotiating bargain that somehow takes place over time?
Well, look, President Trump has a big picture issue of trying to encourage manufacturing to come back to the U.S. We're the most attractive place in the world for foreign direct investment now. He campaigned on securing the border, stopping a big tax increase, right-sizing the regulatory red tape system, and lowering prices for consumers. So I hope
that part's not going to happen in the short term.
Well, it's not.
Let's just stipulate that it's almost impossible to happen under a tariff program like this.
Well, I was just going to make the point that his tariff plan should fit in with that rubric that he campaigned on. So you can use tariffs to bring in manufacturing and target in a reciprocity way. We did this in the Reagan and Bush administrations. I helped run trade policy during the Bush 41 administration and was a negotiator with Japan during those years. And we opened up the Japanese market, and we changed the face of Japan and U.S. trade using tariffs, using the threat of reciprocity at that time.
Well, you're talking to the Trump administration right now, telling them to use a light touch. I can hear you, right?
Well, I think trade diplomacy is important. You can use it as a sanction to compel change in behavior. You can use reciprocity to open markets, like in the case of
I'm sure you
India.
don't like what's being speculated comes out tomorrow, then.
Well, I want to see what comes out tomorrow.
Well,
I don't
the way that we're hearing about
board,
it, I don't think you'd like it.
No, well, I don't think across the board tariffs on all products at a high rate is going to produce the results the president's looking for in the long, in the short, well, certainly in the short run.
20% is what the Washington Post is reporting this morning.
But there is a strategic way to use trade diplomacy. He was successful in it, for example, in his first term. But here's my view about Canada and Mexico and autos. I think we ought to, he should, a year early, reopen those negotiations with Canada and Mexico on USMCA and focus on not only the American portion of North American content so that we maintain that competitive position, but he can also talk to Canada about Mexico about their own imports. Mexico, under the agreement, could tariff certain imports from China today to level the playing field at their border as opposed to our border. So I think the leverage I would use and recommend to the president that he consider reopening USMCA.
But here's the question that I think we're all trying to figure out. There has to be a permanence to the tariffs for them to work. Meaning, if you actually want executives and business leaders to bring their business back to the U.S., they have to believe that this is the way, this is the rule of the land, and therefore they have to make the investment on a long-term basis. We're going to hear whatever the number is tomorrow. And then the question is, if you think there's then retaliatory efforts by other countries, what happens then? And sort of how long does this play out? Because this uncertainty piece is the thing that, more than anything, is what I think is hanging over our economy.
Well, I think when I talk to people in Arkansas, I mean, that's the concern I have. 30% of our state exports go to Canada and Mexico, and we import a lot of component parts. You know, we've created an integrated manufacturing situation here where we import a lot of steel and aluminum that's not made in the U.S. for certain components, and that takes time to transition. We already have a reshoring desire because of the mercantilistic policies of China and other countries. So people are moving back into the North American free trade zone. They want to be here. So how do we encourage that in a constructive way? And to your point, Andrew, these things don't have short-tailed responses. Or if they do, they could be even negative because of the retaliation feature. And that's why I think you ought to do it selectively. In the industries you're trying to bring back and lay out the time frame on what you expect to see increased production here in that arena. And I think it could be longer than the response we get from showing certainty by passing a budget reconciliation bill sooner rather than later, certainty we get by changing regulatory policies. These are things we get.
But no one's calling you from the White House to ask you what you think.
But it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I try to offer my constructive views, having been down this road before.
Can I ask one other question, which is, we had Scott Besson here, and when we asked the question whether the tariffs and the taxes raised from tariffs, to the extent you believe the taxes can get raised from tariffs, will be incorporated into the math for the budget and the taxes going forward, he said no.
Well, it's no, because the CBO doesn't count that in the baseline.
But I imagine you are going to use those.
Well, I think in talking to Chairman Jody Arrington, who's doing a fantastic job navigating the roadway towards reconciliation in the House and Senate, he wants to be aware of it. The announcement tomorrow may give us some feedback on what that might look like. But we're looking at cutting long-term expenses and changing the tax code is what we're measuring. We're not counting on that revenue automatically.
And maybe not going along, though, with the CBO guidelines. Congress is not required to do that.
The two budget chairs in both houses can make their own revenue.
That's right.
That's right.